Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Off to Tube, as we are going to go through another section of your notes where you're going to continue working on processing the material. Remember, one of the biggest struggles in this class is just being able to understand, process, and make sense of the vast amounts of information that you are learning about and reading about in your weekly chapters. That's the reason why you take outline notes. It's to help kind of break down the argument of the chapter, to simplify it, to put it in your own words, to identify the key arguments and evidence. It's the reason why you then, looking at your evidence, start to try to make sense of it by writing theme summaries, noticing the trends and themes throughout the chapter. In addition, looking at those important terms at the back is another way of just reminding yourself of kind of the big ideas and key concept of the chapter, how the chapter then relates not just to what's being talked about in that place, but also that time period. And now what you're going to learn how to do is to ask questions like a historian. Now, within Strayer's chapters are going to be a lot of things that will be happening that historians typically focus on. In order to help you practice and notice these things, I'm going to have you and require you to ask 3 questions that are higher level. There are 5 different types of questions known as doing world history questions, which I know is kind of an awkward phrase, but it's not mine. I got this from somebody else. But these doing world history questions are designed to, again, help you think like a historian and notice some of those connections between the information that you are studying. And so I'm going to teach you about the 5 different types of questions. I'm actually only going to go over 4 of them. The 5th question happens to be about finding the thesis, and you're already doing that in your notes, and so I don't think you need to do it twice. So I'm going to teach you about 4 of these doing world history questions. You are to ask 3 of them each week on your notes. You just have to ask them. You don't have to answer them, just to make sure that everybody understands that. There's a couple rules when we're doing these doing world history questions. Number 1, higher level questions only. Please don't give me the what was Islam? That's a good question. No. I want questions that are higher level only. A good rule for you to follow is only ask how or why questions, or to what extent questions. Questions that can't just be answered in a word or a phrase, something that needs to be explained. That's going to help you then kind of understand and notice the bigger ideas that are happening. In addition, and this is usually pretty obvious, but when you ask these questions, it has to be answerable from the textbook chapter we're actually covering. You can't ask me the same questions week in and week out because I need it to be something specific about what you've been reading. That shows me that you are actually processing and understanding the material that we are covering. So the first type of question is a diffusion question. Now, you've heard me use this word diffusion before in class. And diffusion simply means the spreading out of goods, people, things, ideas, religions, products, people. Diffusion is just something spreading. All of you understand what diffusion is because I'm sure at some point you have been in a car with another individual, probably a male on the football team, after they've enjoyed some Taco Bell on the car ride home. Usually when you're sitting in the back seat, all of a sudden you smell something that made its way from the front seat to the back seat, and your buddy is giggling the whole time and they've locked the windows and there's no way that you can get out of there. Did you just make a fart joke and everything? Yeah, I did. So diffusion, ladies and gentlemen, the spreading out of something from where it was, where there's high concentration, to a place where there's low concentration. You're going to use the same frame throughout the whole, anytime you ask it. You always want to know, how did blank spread from blank to blank? I don't just want to know how something spread. I want to know from where it spread and to where it spread. For example, how did Buddhism spread from India to China? Why did the bubonic plague spread from Central Asia to Europe? Diffusion. Second type of question is comparison and contrast. Again, remember, we talked about this week. Anytime you see the word comparison in a social studies class, it always means similarities and differences. Not just similarities, not just differences, but similarities and differences. So again, your frame, why was blank and blank similar and different in regards to blank? You can't just say, why was Christianity and Islam similar and different? No. You have to say in regards to something. Why was Christianity and Islam similar and different in regards to the development of monotheism? Then you might ask the questions, why were the motives for exploration similar and different in China and Europe? If I wanted to be really good, it would have been in the early modern era. How are the Indus River Valley and Nile River Valley similar and different in terms of their adoption and intensification of farming? So again, two places that have similar and different trends and themes that occur, and then you want to know specifically what is it that you're looking at. The next type of question is the common phenomena. The common phenomena. When the same thing happens in two separate places. Now, we kind of discussed that with farming, but the same thing happens as we see the spread of empires in the classical era. There are cities that develop, those cosmopolitan urban centers. They happen in multiple places throughout the world. And you want to be able to notice when similar things happen in two different places. So that's one of the questions you can ask. So how did blank and blank both have blank? Why was monumental architecture used as a method of control in Mesopotamia and the Americas during the pre-classical era? How were peasants subjugated by landowning nobles in Japan and Russia in the time between 1800 and 1914? These are the sorts of things that you're looking at in two separate places, common phenomena. Now, the last type of question tends to be the favorite of students, probably because it's the hardest, but also, I think, because it's the most interesting. And you're talking about syncretism. Syncretism, the mixing of two elements together to create something new. Now, this isn't chemistry class, so we're not talking about barium and potassium mixing together. We're talking about two historical ideas, religions, values, cultures, sometimes people groups, but you want to think about two separate things that were unique in their own right, interacting, coming together, and then creating something new. So how did blank and blank mix together to create blank? Why did Africans blend their traditional shamanistic religions with Catholicism when enslaved in the Caribbean to create voodoo? Is what would have been even a better way of saying that question. Voodoo. You all know voodoo because you have either visited New Orleans and actually seen that, or you've watched Princess and the Frog, and that evil guy in that was a voodoo doctor, a witch doctor who practices this combination of Catholic beliefs with also some traditional African animal spirits and magic mixed in there. How was communism in the Soviet Union a blend of Marxism and Russian values? The communism of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin is going to not only be just Marxism, it's going to also have some specific Russian ideologies and adaptations. So it shows Russian values, communism, two separate things that when they interact, they mix to create something new, otherwise known as Leninism. So again, syncretism, two separate elements coming together to create something new. So you have four types of questions that you can ask. You can ask a syncretism question, you can ask a diffusion question, you can ask a comparison question, or you can ask a common phenomena question. So you want to have three of those types of questions asked in your notes in order to get credit. And you're only going to get credit if it's a higher level question and if it's answerable in the textbook. That concludes this description. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me.